At this point, we are so close to done, I can almost taste it. The only thing left we need to do is figure out how to sort the rest of the array, because what we have so far is code that searches the entire array, finds the smallest thing, and puts it at the front. So all we need to do is sort the rest, starting at position 1. So we might imagine that we need to do some sort of recursive call. And so I'd like you to think about what that recursive call might look like. Okay, what goes here, in other words. Now, when you work on this problem, you might get tempted to change the signature, the declaration of sort, so that all this stuff here is the signature, but you're not allowed to, okay? That's just a constraint for the puzzle. So think about that for 30 seconds, a minute, however long, and then I will give you my answer. Okay, so one answer you might have been tempted to do is something like this. If you know Python, right? If you've programmed in Python before, it might have been tempting to try and do something like this, where we say, hey, just sort the rest of the array, Java. But the problem in Java is that it is not possible to do anything at all like that. You cannot sub-index into an array or get the address of the middle of an array. Whenever you're given an array, you get the whole thing, and that's it. Okay. So to resolve this question, I'm actually going to take off my student hat because I think this is fairly counterintuitive, but once you know this trick, you can use it all the time. So my intuition here is going to be based on looking at our picture of how selection sort works. When we're trying to sort at a later step, we're effectively trying to sort the array only looking at the last so many items. So we have a particular start index that we care about. So wouldn't it be nice in Java, one way we can deal with this is create a helper method that sorts the array starting at a particular index. So in other words, we create a helper method that sorts x starting at position start. Okay. And what would that look like? Well, I'll make it a private method. It's a helper method. We might have to make it public for testing. I don't know. We'll call it private for now. So private static void sort an array starting at start. And now let's start thinking about what this method would look like. Well, we'd say, okay, let's get the smallest item. Okay, we already know how to do that. Then we need to swap. Okay, we need to be a little careful here because we need to figure out where we swap. So when we find the smallest item, we need to swap it not to position 0, but to the position that we're starting at. So start you can think of as the front green block. So we swap to the front green block, we do smallest index, and then we'll sort the rest of the array. And now we have code that maybe will work for this sort method. Now we have to think about what we have a helper. So the question is, how do we call that? So I actually want to make a very important note here, which is that this method seems to be basically doing everything that our publicly facing method does. In fact, that's where all the work lives. And what this sort method is going to do is basically just get the ball rolling. We have a helper that's able to sort the entire array, a smaller array, whatever else it is. And so all we need to do is make the correct first call. What does that look like? Well, if we sort an array starting at position start, if we set start to 0, that will effectively sort the entire array. That's this step right here, which will kick off this step, which will kick off this step, which will kick off this step, and so forth. And so we end up with a sort method that will hopefully work. Okay, so the pattern we ended up with here is we can't do something like slicing, like you might do in a language like Python. And if you've never seen this, don't worry. I mean, maybe the languages you came from don't have that. A better solution is something like this, in Java at least, where we create a helper method with a special index that tells us what part of the array to care about, and then the public-facing method, the one that the world uses, it just makes a call to our actual workhorse. Okay, so that's the basic idea. And so in the next videos, what we'll do is make sure that sort works by running our tests.